Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following me on my exploration of the wide world of pens, the global wide world of pens. And yes, I got another pen from India. This has a long story behind why I ended up having it, but it finally arrived. Spent a lot of time in India before it finally got onto a plane to America, and then it went fairly quickly since then. It looks like the package may have been opened for customs. There's certainly a lot of customs related information on the package. So we're going to do a live unboxing, and we're going to use scissors because that works best for this type of packaging. And we'll see an interesting box, not wrapped in white cloth, but wrapped in some nice black polka dot cloth. Oh no, it's a box. As usual, doing this over the camera is a PIA, but we'll get there. I have to admit that it's not the packaging that I had expected, but it is certainly different. And let's see how that clasp works. And we'll reveal the pen. And it's cellophane condom, nothing underneath. So this is interesting packaging, I will have to say. And we'll see the pen, and I think right away you'll see why I was so interested in this pen. This is my second Heritage from Kanwrite. It's engraved on the clip there. So this resin is definitely different. Definitely has a lot of different colors in it. Feels good in the hand. And the second reason that I got this pen is because of the nib. I enjoyed my first one. I wanted a second one. And now I have it. Ergonomics are great on this pen design. It does pose deeply and securely, and it doesn't change the balance. So that's why I have now two of these, and we're going to find out a suitable ink for this one, compare it to some other pens, ink it up, and see how well that flex-like nib in steel writes. Besides the flex nib, we also have a hand-cut ebonite feed, which a lot of Indian pens are known for, and that's a substantial channel in that feed. A lot of cuts, and some of them get in contact with the feed, and that will facilitate the flow because now you have air coming in from different directions. I have a hole back here which I think surfaces there in the feed. Here's another little slit there. So this really is reminiscent to me of vintage ebonite feeds, and I think it's one of the things that makes this pen special. The other thing that also makes this pen nice is to clean it out rather than worrying about the piston. I just pulled the nib and feed out, pulled out very easily, just use a rubber gripper, a little twist and a pull, and it's out. We have some diffuse sunlight coming in, which I think is, again, another source of light to give you a different view, different perspective on this, I say, very interesting resin. We'll bring in the LED and play it over this resin. It just feels nice. It looks nice. You know, the gold rings where that blind cap is and where the ink window is it's a very nice design. As my clumsy fingers bring up the cap, we're going to do the same thing. I hope you can appreciate that resin. As we look inside the cap, we'll see that standard cap liner in there that seals up against the section. We go in with the LED, we'll see just a little bit of light come through, and it varies because that resin and that those pigments that were used in that resin just vary so much throughout the resin. I'm happy. Yes, I have two Kanwrite heritages, and this one intrigued me because of the classic colors. And I've actually refilled this 3 times. I just did my 3rd refill. I think it tends to dry out a little bit, but I haven't been diligent in my observations. These two pens are extremely similar. They're very consistent. It's just that coral resin, or sea coral as they referred to it as, is just amazing. We have Kanwrite engraved on that cap band. Very functional, very stiff clips. You may have some trouble getting that over some fine fabric or thick fabric, but it certainly will stay in place once you get it there. The fit and finish is okay. It's not perfect, but then it's not something that I think detracts from the appeal of the pen. These are what I would call captured converter pens, because the top of the converter sticks out and you have the blind cap that's removable. What I find very nice is the fact that that converter color, here it's black to go with the black blind cap, and here it's kind of an interesting clear color with a little bit of kind of pinkish red in it, which kind of goes with the color of the pen. So that's a very nice little detail that they did. I've just assembled some pens for visual comparison. I've bookended this set with the two Kanwrite pens, the sea coral and the orange and black one. Next to it is a Jinhao orange and black with the Wing Sung yellow, with the Moon Man in this cracked ice pattern, a Kangaloo in this interesting resin, which is similar but much different than the Kanwrite resin. There's pearlescence in here. The Kanwrite resin is plain but has more variety of color. Hopefully you can appreciate how this classic design, first brought to market by Parker in their dual fold, has now evolved and become a very common design style. Makes for a chunky pen. The Kanwrites actually post the best of these groups. The other ones, the caps are pretty high and makes for a long pen, and I don't feel is a good balance for writing with, but there's an infinite variety. This is the ink I picked to go into the Heritage Sea Coral pen. I like this color, and I'm hoping that that flex nib will do it justice. Chromatography is pretty plain, but it does show up that residue that remains there, not moved by the water, which I think is some form of iron gall, but I have not done anything to either confirm or deny that. I've had this pen inked up for a few weeks, and I've delayed this review hoping to make a determination as to something will show in the writing. I do like the pen. I like the design. I like the original one that I got, the first one, the orange one. And when I ordered this pen, I'd hoped to order a few other Kanwrites and combine shipping, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So this pen, I think, was on the expensive side. Here's the auction and here's my delivered price. But I do like the pen, and if it wasn't for, other pens from other countries having a similar type of look and feel, but certainly about half the price, this may just be a fine pen, and I would be happy with it. But in perspective, I have to be honest that I think I a little bit overpaid for it based on the delivery price. That cap comes off in a little bit over 2 turns. That fits fine in the hand unposted, but as we talked about, it does post deeply and securely, and it'll work that way. It does add a little weight to the pen. We'll give you the weights, and we'll give you the lengths, and we'll give you the size of that section, which to me is just about perfect. You can hold it anywhere. The threads and that step up really doesn't bother me, at least from holding it. Let's see how the nib writes. This pen just doesn't write well, doesn't write consistently, and I've tried everything I can. It'll write for a little bit, and sometimes that flow is nice, and I do like the feel of the nib. As you can see, it's not consistent. It just stops. And I think that feed should work well to keep that nib lubricated, and I'm not pushing it. I'm not doing anything to stress it, to stop it from writing. And it takes a while sometimes for it to start again. Just inconsistent. So I'm going to first try changing inks before I do anything else. And when it does write fairly wet. Just to put things in perspective, this is my original pen. And I enjoy tremendously the way this writes. It doesn't dry out. You can get a real fine line. You can push it, and as you can see, it does really well. And this has Pilot Blue Black in it. And I've had this pen for a while, and it's been a very consistent writer. I've refilled it a number of times. I've been very happy with it. And as you can see, it can lay down a pretty thick line. So now we got to see if we can get the Coral pen to write as well. So how easy is it to clean out? Fairly easily. I pushed out all the ink back into the bottle, pulled out the nib and feed. It pulls out very easily. Then I used my syringe with water to flush water inside there, and I had the piston down so there wasn't much of an area. Then I pulled the piston up, and I used this paper towel which fits up there. Bring the piston down, twirl it around, and I think that's pretty clean without a lot of effort. And I think that's a nice design. One of the things to do if there's a problem writing is you look at the nib. And the tines are aligned. That slit is nice and open like it should be. Closes up at the end towards that tipping material. It's slightly out of line, but that's not a problem because as soon as you touch paper, they line up. As you can see, it spreads fairly easily. So we're going to try a different ink, and hopefully we get better results writing. After cleaning out the feed, this is the ink I wanted to try. I just like the ink. I think it'll work well in the pen. I hope it'll work well in the pen. It's a nice blue, kind of not much in the sea coral family, but it is one of the colors that is in the pen resin. So let's see how it works in the pen. After cleaning out the channel in the feed, and I opened up that hole. It felt like it was writing better. Then I let it set, and all the ink leaked out. So my guess is that hole wasn't meant to be opened. Thankfully, I have another hand-cut number 6 feed that doesn't have a hole. So we're going to put this one in the pen, ink it back up, and see if it writes better. Amazing experiment. And yes, the ink got all over. Unfortunately, the other feed did not fit well in the pen, even though it looks pretty much the same and measures the same. When I tried to use it with the flex nib, the nib would spread, and I'm not in the mood to really play around with it. So I decided I would fill in that hole that I had opened up, and thinking that that was contributing to the fact that this dumped ink all over the place after I cleaned out that feed and cleaned out that hole, hoping to increase flow, but I increased it too much. Here's a new glue that I'm trying that I found on eBay. It's supposedly used to glue in rhinestones, so it should be pretty strong. Resistance should be good, and it doesn't seem to bother plastics, which is one of the things that a lot of other glues might, like crazy glue. So let's see how it holds up. So far, the things I've glued with it have held up very well. In trying to get the nib to write, I did try a few Fountain Pen Revolution feeds and nibs, but none of them quite fit right. And I wasn't in the mood to try to shave some ebonite feeds and do crazy things, so I stopped that exploration, but I did explore that and was unsuccessful in finding a combination of a feed and nib that would work and fit well in this pen. So after fixing the feed so the ink doesn't just run out, I've written with this for a couple days now, and I'm ready to do the final writing evaluation. So overall, I like the pen. I think with the turquoise ink, and I think the big change was cleaning out that channel in the feed, which was a little gunky. Now the feed is like it should be, and it writes more closely to the orange one. It certainly doesn't get ink starved like it used to. So the real question is this a pen that you might consider? Well, visually, many people might like it. The capture converter does work well. You got a nice ink window. Comes in a great variety of colors. Here's some examples. But I think both of these have nibs that require some patience, some experience to be able to make certain that they write the way that they should or the way that you want them to. And so this is a pen, obviously, for I think for pen nerds and pen people that like to fiddle with their pens. You know, these steel flex nibs, there's been a lot of attempts at making them. Noodler's was one of the first, and I think all of them share a similar challenge. And we'll see in the writing how that looks. I think you can see right off is that it writes much better. There's no ink starvation anymore. And actually this Noodler's turquoise ink makes the nib feel better. It glides across the paper a little bit better. You still get a decent amount of feedback from this nib, but I'm fine with feedback. So the real question is how's the flexing work? Yeah, you can get a medium line. It's kind of like a medium fine. You know, horizontal, vertical are the same. You put a little pressure on it and it opens up. You put a little bit of pressure, it opens up, and it railroads. And that's to me, one of the challenges that these types of nibs have, that could be, ink cohesion and viscosity have a lot to do with that, but I've used this ink in vintage flex and it's worked fine. But for some reason, I think gold nibs, and I have no technical reason why, it seems to work better with ink. I'm a metallurgist, but I'm not an ink guy, and that's really what you need, is an ink guy to find out how that's supposed to work. So this nib feels good on the paper. For everyday writing, if you're not trying to push it, you can enjoy it. And if you do want to push it, you can push it a little bit. And I think loop-to-loops is where you can really get to see that, because now it has a time to refresh the feed. But again, if you push it, you're going to get some railroading. So now we're going to come time to rate this pen. And I'm not even going to look to see what I gave the orange one, but I'm going to give this one an 8.4. And I can only give it one check for the visual look, because that nib, even though now it's okay, it took a lot more effort than it should have to get it to write properly. The fit and finish is okay. It's a handmade pen, and that shows. But everything works as well as it should, and the nib now eventually writes like it should, and then the orange one wrote better when I first got it, so there's some inconsistency with the pens. So is it a pen for you? Well, hopefully this video lets you decide that. And it does right now consistently, which to me is a requirement for a pen, for me to enjoy it, and this could be an everyday carry. So thank you for watching. May you find a pen that you enjoy and an ink that you enjoy writing with. And hopefully you are using your pen to write with and put thoughts on paper, to share, to read later, to journal, to sketch, to doodle, doodle-doo. So reach the end of this video. I hope all of you are safe, healthy, and happy. We're going to say bye. I do like this ink, and it does work okay, but like you say, you can't push it or that ink flow will starve, even though that channel is pretty deep.